Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you all. Excited to welcome you to Pando Days 22. And this is our second of 3 Pando Days premiere events. So we had a really wonderful event yesterday. We're going to have another one on Friday that I hope y'all can make as well. And excited again, just to see what today holds. So today we'll be hearing from the LA Trade Tech, from ArtCenter, from the Santa Monica College of the Canyons, as well as Pepperdine teams. The challenge categories that they're taking on include health, communications, and spirit. So we've got a really diverse range of things that we're tackling today. Most of you joining this event know that we have a not so secret goal, which is to connect educators and students to a really big plan. The one that really matters, the LA County Sustainability Plan. This is the boldest regional sustainability plan in the country. And so we're really excited to see all of you students and faculty involved in this and pushing this forward as well. Pando Days offers a framework that helps implement the plan itself with innovative solutions to some of those really pressing problems that are facing the Southland. These are problems of urban green space and waste, of workplace health and communications, of climate, and so many more things. The good news is that we're succeeding. More than half of the projects that have been launched through the Pando Days program so far, and that's since we started in 2019, have actually been picked up by outside funders or moved ahead by community partners. That's incredible. To date, there's been 20 colleges and universities from across the region that have participated, and they've produced nearly 40 separate change-making initiatives. But the best news is that you're getting to see what the Pando Days 2022 has been up to with premiere presentations this week. And these are coming from the participating colleges and universities that have dedicated full courses, studios, or labs over this fall term that just completed to this work. Then on April 16th, which we definitely hope to have you all join us for, that's going to be the finale of Pando Days, specifically of the 2022 season and the launch of the 2023 season. And that event's going to be held at Caltech. And there we'll be celebrating all the projects with a specially produced film and book as well. So there's going to be a lot to see. Definitely mark your calendars. There will also be some small seed grants awarded at that event as well. Most importantly, we'll be gathering all of you, students and team leads, together with the people that you need who are in a position to help realize the best of these projects and actually create that positive change that you all are striving for. So again, that'll be April 16th. Definitely don't miss it. But all that said, let's get started with the second day of Pando Days project premieres. Premieres, these are the opportunities for projects that have been developed over the fall to be officially presented. As you can see, we're recording this. The recordings, along with all of the project materials, are going to be posted on a rolling basis to each team's dedicated webpage on the Pando website. And there should be a link in the chat to that now for you to hang on to as well. All of these projects and these recordings are going to be assessed by a panel of judges. Today, though, we'll be hearing from 5 teams. The first 3, again, focus on the Sustainability Challenge category of health, community-wide, and that includes Los Angeles Trade Technical College near the heart of downtown LA, ArtCenter College of Design over in Pasadena, and Santa Monica College, always famous in my mind for being home to the NPR radio station KCRW, super cool. Representing the Sustainability Challenge category of communication is College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita. And then representing the Spirit category is Pepperdine University in lovely Malibu. So different projects, different categories, all focused on this common goal of making more just and sustainable this place that we call home. Our premiere presentation format will consist of 10 minutes for each school to present summaries of their projects, followed by another 10 minutes of Q&A from a panel of experts who I'll introduce briefly after our first presentation concludes. And then on to the next. And again, we've got 5 project presentations total for today. So First up, we've got Los Angeles Trade Technical College, LA Trade Tech. Their project called What's Next, the Nature Walk. The team's designed a 3-mile nature walk along the train tracks in Watts with goals of improving the neighborhood, microclimate, and general quality of life. Professor Marcela Oliva is the team lead. And Marcela, I'm very excited to see you again. It's been a while. I'm going to throw it over to you for your presentation. Take it away.
Thank you. It's so fabulous to be here again. And let's begin. So here on the right, you can see our community partners.
Looking at the aftermath of the riot, I can still smell the ashes from all the clashes. But quiet is kept, it wasn't just the blacks. Everybody was looting and had each other's backs. We came through and understanding, demanding justice, justice. We all had a hand in the cookie jar and took it far enough to make a statement. Daryl Gates, that's where all the hate went. We passed by a swap meet, been shopping at for years, but it couldn't.
Hello and welcome. My name is Johnny Blatto. And this is our project, the Watts Nature Walk Park. The project is creating a 3-mile green space pedestrian walk along the Watts train tracks, using a flexible library of drag and drop design solutions to improve the neighborhood microclimate. This project will visualize and build a 3-mile pedestrian walk along the train tracks of Watts. The area is typically devoid of greenery, with a footprint of hardscaped or hardened soil, corners of trash with little shade, and polluted air and danger next to train tracks. Drawing from a steadily expanding virtual library offering innovative 3D design build solutions to support the microclimate. This flexible approach will enable the community to imagine their own public green space with opportunities for cooling, observation towers, pollinators, clean air, sustainable water use, and energy production. Using the metaverse as a platform for sharing design modules, the project further intends to provide a blueprint for urban change that could be easily accessed and modified by site to make any neighborhood environmentally resilient and conducive to spiritual growth.
So there's a big crisis. Over 70% of our areas near the train tracks and metro rails are in great state of disrepair. Fortunately, according to the Department of Transportation and existing regulations, we have enough space to create a walk, a pedestrian walk, a bike walk, and including some urban interventions. These are the 4 categories of our Watts Nature Walk: a pedestrian walk, urban interventions, and some nice, beautiful fences decorated with green trellises, as well as some sustainable alleys.
Good morning. My name is Juliana Daniel, and I'm presenting on conceptual landscape design for Watts Nature Walk. The Nature Walk's tower was envisioned by the community and has multiple purposes. For instance, there is an observation deck, solar panels, and water catchments which are used for harvesting rainwater. In addition, there is a pollinator center, a place for social gatherings, as well as a location for growing food, just to name a few. The objective of this project is to revive the composition or makeup of the community. Its aim is to foster the maintenance of strong community inclusion and connections.
The observation tower is a proposal to design resembling nature, using models and geometries that have existed from billions of years. I believe these shapes and forms from nature are powerful for our mind and are an inspiration for our communities to live in harmony and in connection with nature. The design of this proposal is reminiscent of cocoons which promote growth and adaptability. The observation tower uses kinematic systems that open and close based on the weather conditions. Neri Oxman, bioarchitect and professor of the MIT Media Lab, says, "Nature-centric design views every design construct as a whole system."
Hello everyone, my name is Erica Pineda, and today I will be presenting two proposals for the Watts Nature Walk. The Metaverse Star Hub was designed to become a platform where architects and students could gather to provide ecological solutions. The hub will also serve as educational. Kids will be able to learn ecological solutions through virtual reality. My second proposal is a metro railing station design, which was inspired by a hummingbird. The main concept of the design is to provide safety and sustainability to the community. The hummingbird of the design can become vertical trellises, solar panels, water collectors, or use air recycling materials. The royal blue color that you see on my design will provide shade or cover, and the gray concrete benches will serve as a sitting area for the passengers waiting for the train. Thank you.
Mushroom leather stools. So these stools are supposed to be made from leather, but instead they're made from something created by the Milo company that makes vegan and environmentally friendly resources. It has the same durability and texture as leather, but is made from an untapped resource. These stools are supposed to be used in a green space for relaxation and sitting, and can be arranged in any order.
The Artichoke Gate is a freestanding mosaic portal structure that visitors to the Healing Garden will be able to pass through as a symbolic threshold. It's based on the geometry of the artichoke flower, which is known as a healing food that opens the heart and heals the heart. Very appropriate for a space that is intended for those who are healing from traumatic experiences. The gate will be surrounded by plantings of artichoke plants, which may be harvested for their healing food properties and may also be left to bloom their beautiful purple blooms. Similar to the artichoke flower, the artichoke gate will also have an array of bright purple landmark lasers, which will be able to be shined up into the sky and seen from around Los Angeles. This will give the community the opportunity to highlight dates of importance and draw attention to the consciousness that is awakening in Watts and bring Watts to the public eye as a place that is leading in transformation of the city.
Hello, my name is Ralph Ariano, and I'm here to present to you the Watts Olympics Canopy series, preparing for the Olympics in Los Angeles 2028. This proposal explores the possibility of creating shading structures that will provide energy for charging stations and lights next to a walking area along the trains and metro tracks. Each canopy will be named after the winning team for each of the category games played at the Olympics. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jacob Duran. This is my proposal for a Watts Eco Canopy Observation Tower. In response to the community's desire to have an observation tower, I designed a series of triangulated areas with multiple functions at each deck. Each deck exhibits ecological solutions for a healthy community: water, energy, air, and recycle. Near the tower, a cluster of hyperbolic shading canopies will facilitate community gathering to share learning or just have some type of me time in the near future. Thank you.
Hello, my name is David, and this is my proposal for Watts Nature Walk. My charging seating Olympic boots will provide a quick, efficient, harmonious flow with nature by combining natural spacing and function with the intent to socialize with friends with similar interests and different foreign countries. The charging seating Olympic boots acts as a subtle detail using the flower of life design all throughout the booth.
So as you can see here, the next ones, I'm just going to give you the title, but what we have generated here at LA Trade Tech is the power of design. Design is a human right. And thanks to an amazing methodology and partnership with all our different scholars and scientists, we have created a methodology where community can come as designers, as builders, as scientists. And you can see how exquisite all of these proposals are and how much humanity and how much healthy living they will bring to our community. So I'm just going to call these next ones. And then later on, as you know, you can stop the recording and look at them. They're all really wonderful proposals. This is another energy tower. This is a decoration of a fence utilizing the flower, the lavender flower. This is also another proposal for canopies inspired on mushroom. Remember, these students came fresh. These are first semester students, learned the tool, learned the design, learned the sustainability goals. So we are accelerating learning. We are accelerating engaging through design, biomimicry, empathy, and spiritual connection to our planet Earth. And mathematics. A type of mathematics that never seen before. All our geometries are based on mathematics found in nature. This is a cooling center, a biomimicry trellis, stage. This is a mathematical. Remember, these are all urban interventions that will happen along the nature walk. So what are the formulas actually generate? They generate all these beautiful shapes that can be found in nature and the universe. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Marcella. I love seeing the inspiration of nature and how you're able to transform the area around, these train tracks into this flourishing green space, and how the students are learning by doing something so meaningful for their community as well. So thank you for the lovely presentation. We're going to hear from a panel of experts now who are going to ask some questions that we hope can just more fully illuminate it as well. The panelists that we're turning to represent a really wide range of sustainability experts. Today, we've got Steve Ball of Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. We've got Cassie Rouser of the UCLA Sustainable Grand Challenge. And we have Chris Ree, who's representing the engineering firm Bureau Happold. And Chris has a very close association with the LA County Sustainability Plan because he actually served as the lead drafter of the plan as well. So thank you to all of you for joining us. We're going to give you 10 minutes for some questions. And, why not start with Steve, just to put you on the spot.
Sure, well, thank you. It's good to see you, Olivia. I think these are great projects. I really like how they connect them with the community and with the sustainability efforts. One of the things that I saw as a theme was this concept of water collection. And particularly, I was kind of hoping you can maybe, focus a little bit more and discuss a little bit about that. What type of water use, how is it going to be integrated into the soil, if it was going to be, collected, re-engaged in the groundwater, focus. I was hoping you can talk a little more about that.
Absolutely. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, I have about 10 students here in the classroom and you're projected on a large screen. But we have studied specifically we study the plant, how do we actually capture through the veins of the pipes. As you can see, a lot of them, if you zoom in, we study how the pipes could capture some of the water. We also thought how instead of creating pavement that just takes it into the ocean, we're going to create pervious material so we can actually irrigate our soil. And then also how a lot of these booths will educate the people how to save water. So the actual structure, I'm forgetting the name of the plant that we study, the poly, right? That actually we study how in between the two legs, there's like a little a space, a gap where it holds the water. So we're actually doing a lot of biomimicry studies of how to do water catchments within, so then they become dripping systems. Like on the bird canopy, we started studying how it will capture the water and then it will become an irrigation system. So I'll be happy to share more. These are all at a conceptual level, but all of the proposal, we imagine them to become water catchment, water irrigation, energy production, and also we are working with 2 companies where the fabric cleans the air. So we also imagine all of these spaces having fabric that cleans the air. Yeah, the plant, the poly, yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Cassie, can we turn it to you?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So exciting to see these projects. So I actually worked with Chris on the county sustainability plan, and my background is in biodiversity and conservation. My question is related to learning more about maybe the types of partnerships you might have to ensure that you're using native landscaping, using proper landscaping to contribute to the biodiversity targets in the plan and such, or how did you go about thinking about those things?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. We went super fast, but we're actually partnered with the United States Green Building Council, the Urban Landscape Committee. So we're working very close with them. The Reverence Project, the Healing Garden, they have multiple foundations that specialize on landscape. Also, Mia Studio Design Landscape Architects are also been helping us. So we are definitely in a network of the local initiatives for selecting the right plants. We also work very close with Caltrans, so we have their entire database of local plants that we know they're pretty rough because they survive our freeways. So we have access to that. As you mentioned, all of these, we're creating a very robust database. So we're putting all of these families into the digital twin so we can bring it into the twin motion so we can utilize it into the metaverse. So yes, they're definitely some of our partners. And also we have Robin Eason, that she's a sustainable strategist and urban planner that's going to be helping us very closely. So we do have some really incredible partners that are very well-versed in sustainability and plants. We also visited the Arboretum, the Metabolic Studio contacted us, and we visit some experts on soil remediation. And yes, definitely a lot of work. And we have a lot of people that want to help us and support. And I have a few students on the line and some students here. So please raise your hand if anybody would like to add something to any of these questions. Thank you.
So if I could just follow up with that question or make a recommendation or suggestion is, I mean, historically throughout the region, there's been definitely a shift to drought tolerant types of landscaping, but very little transition to actual native plant landscaping that works in harmony to honestly both, reattract various types of pollinators, birds, insects, etc., to the region, but maintain what we have here as well. So it might be beneficial to work together with some biologists who maybe specialize in those types of relationships and really the native landscaping that was once here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That definitely will take that into consideration. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Cassie. Chris, would love to throw it to you for a question.
Thank you very much, Matthew, and pleasure to be here and see many familiar faces. It's always really energizing to view these kinds of projects. I love the inspiration behind this one and thinking about repurposing what used to be single purpose infrastructure into something that has multiple benefits. We have this has been a trend over the past decade and a half, I would say, when we look at places like the High Line in New York City or the Belt Line in Atlanta. These are places definitely to look to for inspiration. One question that I would have, and in applying my sort of perspective as an urban planner, is that when we approach projects such as these, one of the early questions is like, who lives there or who lives adjacent, and what might the needs of the community be, whether it's recreation, passive or active, or safe routes to school. I'm wondering if the group has sort of considered the populations living adjacent.
Great question, Chris. We are very fortunate. Oya Cheryl is the daughter of a very strong movement back from the 70s with the father of the Peace Trust. Collaboration with the people that live in the neighborhood. So actually out of this effort, we got 3 youth taking the class from Watts. So we're hoping that in the winter and the spring, we're also gonna have people in our classroom from those communities that they never see themselves as designers, urban planners. And that's actually our goal, to attract those students to come into our classroom. We did some general GIS, and we also did a lot of studies, as you know, Watts corridors. They have a lot of studies on the Watts corridors. And it's kind of interesting, they do not include anything around the tracks. They have the 2 streets, but not the opportunity next to the tracks. So I appreciate that. And we're definitely gonna even do more network into the community, because that's the whole idea. And I forgot to say that many of our students live in the neighborhood, and it is designed by the neighborhood, for the neighborhood, by the community, for the community. So thank you, Chris. We will include some maps. I think we should have included some maps that we made. So we'll improve our presentation, our deck. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, panelists. Thank you again, LA Trade Tech. Great work on that. We're going to now run on over to ArtCenter College of Design, my alma mater, actually, with a Pando Days project that's digging into places we don't typically like to look, the trash. So their project, it's called Upping Our Recycling Game. And Professors Jonathan Abarbanel and Hydran Mumper-Drum are the team leads, with Hydran presenting. Hydran, I hear your students are designing a whole suite of these products that are meant to last and later hopefully be repurposed. It's a really exciting, interesting approach for some commonly used products. So, as a designer myself, just eager to hear more, and want to throw it to you for your presentation.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. I'm so happy to be here. On behalf of myself and Jonathan Abarbanel, we are co-faculty in an upper term product design course. This fall, we decided to take on the challenge of waste. And what we will present today, what the students will be presenting via a video, represents 5 student teams and 5 concepts. So you'll see a variety of solutions that the students have been arriving at. As I said, it's embedded into an upper term product design studio, and we were very much inspired by the waste goals that are contained in the LA County Sustainability Plan. We wanted to to tackle that, use that as a focus for the class. We began with some initial research in which we asked the students to research by way of their own personal waste consumption. So for the first week, they had to retain any waste that they generated, with the exception of bathroom waste, but everything else, whether it was a straw or a gum wrapper or shavings from a pencil, they had to not only collect that material, but then develop categories, categorize the different types of waste, and find a measure for how to give it some value. Do they count the number of water bottles? Do they weigh them? What would be the metric? They did that for a week. Once they developed their categories, they continued it for another 4 weeks. And at the 5th week, they had to report their findings. You'll see some of that work in the video that we will share. From that personal research, they developed some material and end-of-life insights, which were added to goals and strategies used in developing a product service system concept. They worked in teams. Each team has a different product service system concept. They're currently finishing up those projects. Next week is finals, so they're busily at work. I'm going to turn to Alexi and ask him to share the video that the students have put together. They're going to introduce their product category and talk about some aspect of their solution. I do want you to know that the transitions between projects are very swift. So we weren't able to kind of put nice title pages in between. So you'll see 4 projects in one long video.
Hi everyone, we are Team Originator. We come from ArtCenter College of Design, and this is Lucy, this is Yiyuan, and hi everyone, I'm Doris. For our personal waste project, we realized that landfill waste, compostables, and recyclables all go to the same trash can. This makes management of waste really difficult because it all goes to the same source. Looking at the makeup packaging nowadays, most of them are recyclable, but since they are too small, so they end up in landfills anyway.
Also, we started to looking at items that we handle on a daily basis and their end-of-life solutions. And some of the products becomes waste themselves even before they're used up. And we're especially talking about makeup. For a lot of us, some of the palettes that are unwanted or like out of fashion, we just throw them in the corner and never use them again. And that's how it led to our tray project.
Trays is a sustainable modular makeup system that allows refilling and customization. All makeup products are contained in small pans of 3 different sizes. They fit into a tray like puzzles, giving users the freedom to arrange them. When a product runs out, they can simply pick out the empty pan and order a new one. Empty pans are collected and returned to the store. This way, there won't be any unused colors on the palette.
We refrain from using plastic in our design to extend the lifespan of our product. The main body of the tray is made from aluminum and has magnets embedded inside, so the steel makeup pans can stick to the tray. We also include a stainless steel clip to connect the trays together.
We created a marketing campaign centered around educating users about the significance of sustainable products. Plastic waste is a serious problem in the makeup industry. By eliminating the use of plastic and creating a circular product system, Trey aims to revolutionize the makeup industry and create a cleaner future.
Hello, we are Orange Boys. My name is Johnny.
My name is Christian.
Today we're here to present our personal waste project. So over 5 weeks, I found out I drank over 70 bottles of water. A large amount of food packaging is also generated from ordering takeouts and shopping online.
Majority of my waste was comprised of both plastic and paper. There were some other high waste products like cans and glass that also contributed to the overall waste.
Since it was a 5-week collection where both of us were supposed to look at how much waste we each produced, then we compared the results with each other. Looking at what was used and how each week was different, both projects had both similarities and differences. The key takeaway here was that the majority of waste produced was plastic and that food waste. We are able to find ways to incorporate our personal waste finding into our sustainable footwear concept for Vans called Origin. So for this project, we are trying to push Vans' sustainability strategy one step further by combining it with Vans' unique connection with California skate culture. We want to help Vans push the culture forward and really stand out among its competitors. The origin story of Surf to Skate is what we are trying to tell through our design to better connect with Vans' California core consumers. By using recycled ocean plastic and locally sourced food waste, it not only represents the story of Surf to Skate, but also eliminate crude oil during raw material extraction and chromium during the tanning process.
By moving the factory from Asia back to the US, we can reduce CO2 emissions during transportation. It also provides more jobs locally for the Californian people. We also aim to reduce ecotoxicity during the end of the product life by extending the usage of a pair of Vans to the repair system. The concept Vans Origin praises its heritage, giving back to the Californians by collecting locally sourced plastic and food waste, turning them into a pair of fashionable sneakers. This product builds an emotional connection with Californian skaters through a great story with the goal of making sustainability fashionable and saying no to fast fashion.
Thank you.
Hello, we're Nutri Design. I'm Liam.
I'm Sunny. I'm Joy.
And we're first going to start with our personal waste projects. In mine, I learned about how much I was consuming per week and what my real impact is.
For me, I create more waste than I expected.
For me, I realized I purchased more than I need, which creates a lot of waste as well. So we are Nutri Design and we are designing the infinite bottle for this project.
And our concept is designed as a vehicle to get a little closer to a circular economy.
And our system covers 5 stages of baby growth, and we have 5 products in total.
We also have this circular take pipeline for 3 type of material. And lastly, we also provide user supporting app with user instruction and product assessment.
And our aspiration is to make baby products less harmful to the environment as a step in the right direction.
We seek adventure. We need to preserve our connection to nature. The tools that allow us to do that look like this. These products feature an excessive amount of tools unnecessary for beginner hikers. We want change. Let's get realistic. Realistic is a rentable hiking stick created using sustainably sourced materials designed with different terrains in mind. By researching hiking kits sold today and interviewing Forest Service rangers, we realized enough is enough. We must teach pack-in and pack-out methods. Now let's talk features. We combined essential features of different hiking kits, like a compass, a knife, a saw, flint and steel, a flashlight, and added elements like a shovel, and of course adding features like adjustable length for the pole. Realistic will change the way you interact with trails. How? Realistic integrates a mobile app, which allows you to rent out your personalized hiking stick. First, you will sign into your trail. Then, the app will designate a specific hiking stick suitable for that trail. The Realistic app even provides other resources and facts about your trail. This product not only reduces the overall environmental impact of consumer hiking products, but also shares the gift of nature with beginner hikers. Let's stick with nature and get realistic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Hydran. What a beautiful mix of projects. It's so fun to be able to see actually all of those condensed together like that. Excited to see what our panelists think. Let's see, Steve, we started with you last time, so maybe we start with Cassie this time.
You have to think of a good question. The name of that last one is so great.
Realistic, yeah.
That one was very good. I love this. All the projects are really quite focused on, the circular economy and finding a new place for our waste and reusing it, which I think is obviously where we really are and what we need right now. When you approached this project as a group, did the students decide that they were all approaching this sort of strategy or intervention, or did they all come up with this on their own?
Yeah, they knew that there was going to be a particular focus on end-of-life strategies.
Okay.
But they each proposed 3 different reference products. And then we helped them decide which one of those product categories would be most beneficial in terms of a product service system. They do very extensive life cycle assessment work in the beginning. So that's another thing. They have to purchase the benchmark product. They have to take it apart completely. They have to identify and weigh every part and do a quantitative assessment. So that sometimes determines what the category is going to be. They don't do computers. That's a little, tougher to take apart and analyze. And so it has to do with their own personal interest and with our guidance.
Okay, no, that's great to understand. So it'd be great to set up the project in that way, because I think I was expecting them to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I see the connection now, of course.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Cassie. Chris, let's throw it to you.
Finding the mute button. Yes. Yeah, thank you. I mean, this was really fun to see these concepts come to life. You know, when I think of the challenges associated with end-of-life disposal and you know, making sustainable choices, there's a lot of behavioral research in the solid waste space that says that, you know, if people are presented with a choice at the right time in the right place with the right message, oftentimes they will make the sustainable decision. So, but we may not always have the sustainable product at our fingertips, or we may not have a recycling bin next to a rubbish bin. So there are these kinds of interventions that we can think of to support this idea of circularity. So along those lines, I'm wondering, you know, we're thinking about the products at this point, and there's a lot more that might go into you know, making these come to life. But how might potential customers and consumers be inspired to make the sustainable choice?
So we've been thinking kind of about that. Like, what is the benefit of these kind of speculative concepts? And I think people need to see what the future might look like. They need to get excited about how things can be better and how, you know, design can actually, to your point, not only help them make better choices, but enable better choices, you know, to design things to already be stewards of the environment. So the outcome of projects like this are not always tangible, but they're more a suggestion as to how we might live, you know, on this planet in the next 5, 10, you know, 20 years. The other aspect of these projects is that they are they're somewhat educational, you know, doing a personal waste assessment. Those things should be done in grammar school or in high school. You know, it could be part of Earth Week or something. So some of the learning, the learning that took place in the class can actually move out of that classroom and enable learning, you know, outside a design school. And lastly, the companies like Vans, they're really looking to up their game. You know, if you go to the websites of those companies, they have a mission. And now here's a concept that uses orange peel leather, and the students actually made and vetted that material to make sure it could hold up as a footwear kind of material. So innovation is another kind of outcome of these projects. Even if Vans doesn't actually build a shoe like that, this suggests that they should consider building shoes like that.
Yeah, I love that. Expanding the concept of what is possible and challenging the status quo. And then just on a personal note, I got my whole start in the sustainability business by doing waste audits in my college dorm and weighing everyone's waste out in the courtyard. So
I love it. And has changed you forever, right?
Oh, that's great. Steve, let's throw it to you.
Great, well, thank you. You know, these are really cool ideas, and I think what was really neat about it is, you know, hearing the students kind of do their own waste audit and how that inspired their own ideas. You know, particularly, you know, I also sit on the Eastern Sierra recreational group, so seeing such things as hiking sticks and rentals, and, you know, trying to deal with a lot of that waste that's coming out of the parks is really a great idea. One of the things that I also was thinking was sort of, you know, how deep are you going into this assessment? Because I think it would be really interesting to, you know, a lot of these students were talking about, you know, local manufacturing and kind of understanding the greenhouse gas implications for doing almost greenhouse gas assessment. You and particularly those transportation costs that are often embedded in those materials. So, kind of leaning in deeper into, keeping the local production, looking at that aspect might be super interesting and engaging, and help these products be even defined more in the sustainability.
Yeah, many of the students actually calculated carbon footprints of their original benchmark product and then compared it to their concept product. It's sometimes difficult to be accurate because you don't know exactly where all the materials are coming from that go into the reference product or where those factories are. So you can only estimate, but bringing things, local manufacture changes by several orders of magnitude what those carbon footprints are often. And for students to realize that, that's a big kind of learning moment, that simply by moving sourcing and manufacturing and warehousing, it can have a big impact.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And I think it's also great, about the workforce development issues too, many
Right.
people are looking at and tackling on the green economy.
Yeah. It's hard to get everything into one class though, right?
Oh, that's true. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Hydran. Thank you, ArtCenter. Great work on that. We're going to now move to the Santa Monica College and their project, which is called Altered District. Here, the focus is the Garment District in downtown LA, where they've actually designed architectural prototypes for healthier and more sustainable work environments for this predominantly immigrant workforce. David Gonzalez Rojas is the team lead, and David, eager to hear more.
So yeah, we're in Santa Monica College, and our team members are the students. We had about 12 students participating, as well as our sustainability design consultant that helped us, Olga, and our community partner, which was the Garment Workers Center. And there was a organizer, Nayantara, who was very helpful. And here's a photo of our team when we went on the site visit. So we're too busy working on this to get a picture of all of us where you can see all of us. But the garment workers of the fashion district in downtown Los Angeles are mostly Latino and Asian immigrants who have been fighting for better working conditions for decades, such as ventilation, daylighting, and just wages. And now the threat of gentrification with the planning department's newly approved zoning plan. This project envisions building design solutions for these and other environmentally related problems, seeking to preserve the fashion district as a manufacturing hub while simultaneously making the district more livable, accessible, equitable, and ecologically responsible. We noticed that there's an entire ecosystem related to garment work in these few blocks in the fashion district, and they involve the garment workers themselves, as well as the designer studios, the employers of the garment workers, which are called contractors, who are the ones who have the direct contracts with the brands. These contractors have leases on factory spaces. There's tool rental shops like sewing machine shops. There's freight elevators. There's actual physical alterations and modifications that have been done on the site to make this place work for garment workers. And it all happens in this kind of tight nucleus in these blocks. And it's been developing that way for decades. Over half of the nation's apparel manufacturing jobs are actually here in Los Angeles, with 45,000 garment workers making up the city's second largest industry, only behind motion pictures, so like film and TV. But the difference is that the cut and sew industry is hidden, with its largely undocumented workforce exploited and exposed to poor health and safety conditions. On top of that, today the city planning department is pushing forward a plan that allows for more luxury housing within the district. And they propose that the manufacturing spaces and new housing will coexist. And this plan was actually signed and approved by the director of the planning department about 2 months ago. So this is a real pressing issue. What is really needed, in our opinion, is a more serious look at how we can protect this essential community that clothes us by providing them with just wages and proper working conditions. Here you have a diagram from the planning department showing that they will only require, for new construction within the fashion district, they will only require one floor level of new buildings that are being built here to be manufacturing spaces. And we believe that there will probably be loopholes to turn those manufacturing spaces into lofts very easily as well. So why do we care about manufacturing? So while some might look at manufacturing as part of the economic past, maintaining a strong manufacturing core is actually critical for giving LA a chance to maintain its economic leadership. Manufacturers generate economic activity from a diverse array of suppliers, which in turn contributes to the health of local communities or in local economies. A strong manufacturing economy unlocks important employment and advancement opportunities. So this is a diagram here showing that manufacturing and residential and commercial activities as they occur on site now could actually continue coexisting with each other with a larger percentage of manufacturing than what's being proposed. So the Santa Monica College architecture students partnered with the Garment Workers Center to imagine what a healthy, sustainable fashion district can look like if the workers are given the supportive infrastructure they need. So there are some photos of our class here actually visiting some factories that are actually exemplary factories that have invested in their workers by installing state-of-the-art air conditioning systems, maintaining windows that are up to code and fire exits that are up to code, as well as providing spaces for eating lunch and actually providing lunch for workers. Our studio surveyed and analyzed buildings currently used for garment manufacturing. So we were giving a list of buildings where garment workers can be found, and we analyzed the buildings, a few buildings, and we actually spent some time drawing the floor plans, the elevations, building physical models of them, and kind of analyzing these issues dealing with daylight, ventilation, indoor environmental quality, as well as open space and spaces of respite. So with that, I'm going to let Avalon from our class talk about the first project.
Hello, I'm Avalon. So one of the things that we noticed when we were visiting the factories was that there wasn't a lot of natural daylight getting into some of them. If they were, it was direct sunlight, so it was creating a lot of heat in the workplace. So we replaced the roof on this building with a sawtooth roof in kind of an industrial type way, and then created these industrial tubes around the windows to allow for the plants to capture carbon before they reach the inside of the building. And then this is a render of what that space would look like.
On this other building here, we found that it was a taller building next to and it had a section of it that was a one-story section. So we decided to create a solar kind of garden there, which would be a space for workers to relax during lunchtime, planted with native plants. And we created this kind of high-tech solar roof that faces the sun, as well as replacing part of the facade of the building with also solar cells. So again, the idea is to give these buildings kind of a new life, adaptive reuse, sustainably bringing them into the 21st century, really.
So then next, we also looked at spaces for breaks, and noticed that the workers didn't really have the infrastructure to or the buildings didn't have the infrastructure to give workers a chance to step away from the workspace. And so we took the fire escape balconies on a building and enlarged them and widened them to traverse the whole front part of the building. And then we did some kind of strategic cutouts of parts of the building to provide green spaces and outdoor spaces for breaks. And then did some gardens down at the street level to just bring that into the sidewalk space. And yeah, that's a rendering.
Let's go down. Hello, everyone. My name is Karen. For this building, we found some interiors acoustics. We have a solution for these buildings. Since we visited the buildings, the factories, we noticed that 100 machines are all inside one large space. They all create an unhealthy sound pollution for the workers. We researched cork as an acoustic material to mitigate the reverberations. So we designed acoustic clouds that hang above each workstation, so you can see in the rendering. And the clouds are installed to complement lighting fixtures, structure, fire sprinkles, and air conditioner ducts to create a healthier, better working environments. The next building, in this building, we noticed the underuse of live wells. So we decide to create with this low roof. We decide that they can be landscaped with native plants to create an outdoor lunch and exercise space for all the garment workers. And on the facade of the building, we can notice the large factory windows. We noticed that the large factory windows created too much heat from the workers for the workers. So we designed a series of fabrics and textiles that you can notice in the facade right there. There are patterns that we attach it to the building in order to reduce the solar heating gain. Right here, we can see that we can also imagine the garment workers taking a part of this production for the solar shades. Thank you.
So yeah, we looked at a few more buildings. I'll skip ahead to this building here where we noticed that there was opportunity to create a second skin facade for controlling the heat gain as well as shading from the natural light, and actually creating a space for rest and for a community space on the side of the building as well. And finally, we think the next steps on our project are to develop an awareness campaign of these issues happening with the planning department, and to help imagine what the district could be if it remained a mostly manufacturing district. So some of that will include actually translating a document like this into Spanish to share with the members of the Garment Workers Center, launching the campaign and hopefully meeting with the planning department to discuss the issues. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. And thank you, students. Wonderful work. Excited to see just the creative use of design and engineering to try to improve the lives of people that are making our clothes. And it was beautifully presented as well. So thank you for that. I think, why don't we start with Chris?
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, David and team. Really appreciate the presentation. I happened to write my master's thesis on the challenges of urban manufacturing, so very much up my alley, and glad to see that you're engaging with it. I think the problem statement was very well put. Land use is a way that we express our community values, and so to protect manufacturing jobs, and particularly the economic mobility that they provide, is important. And we do have a housing crisis in Los Angeles, no doubt. But it's much easier to preserve manufacturing uses than it is to create them anew in these urban environments. So I think that was very well stated. Some things to consider as you were describing the projects and the characteristics of these buildings. I think there's an interesting opportunity in the ways that residential uses aren't always compatible with manufacturing, which is that there are impacts such as noise and vibration, which may make being adjacent to manufacturing neighbors not that desirable if you're a resident. However, does that open up other opportunities to think about what else might be happening in the building, and particularly at the ground level, right? Could there be a restaurant or a nightclub or other uses that also come with noise and vibration that might not mind being in that same place? And I also wonder, is there a way to sort of engage with the street to have on the ground level demonstration space or retail space that's connected to what's happening upstairs? I'm wondering if you've thought about particularly that ground floor and how you might address it.
Is there a time for us to respond a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, good. Yeah, absolutely. And one thing about garment, we didn't really focus on this too much or didn't mention it, but it is like light manufacturing, right? So I did just keep saying manufacturing, although, it's light manufacturing uses that we would try to make them compatible with residential and right, there's certain mitigations that we could do, like acoustics and definitely something that our studio project is, which I'd be happy to share some more stuff later offline, is actually designing a block which deals with commercial space, residential, and how those things would actually come together. So it's something that we've definitely thought about. It's not what this presentation was really focused on. I would say that the way we want to focus this presentation is more of imagining buildings being able to be altered in a way to bring them into the future and maintaining them as manufacturing buildings, And definitely the fashion district is already this kind of living ecosystem of commercial activity. As I'm sure anybody that's been there, it's a wild kind of pedestrian, very unique kind of pedestrian zone in Los Angeles with a lot of ground level activity, as well as some residential uses scattered throughout. Mostly artists that kind of move in for kind of live work uses in the buildings.
Great. Thanks, David. Thanks, Chris. Cassie, let's throw it to you, and then we'll go to Steve.
Sure. Thank you for that. That was a really beautiful presentation, and I thought it was really thoughtful the way that you've integrated so many different sustainability concepts into the building. So my question is, how do you fund something like this? Have you thought about that? Have you engaged with the current manufacturers and or the workers to help inform the design that you are talking about? And did they provide suggestions that resulted in certain pieces that you integrated, if you did engage with them already? What are they looking for? That's a lot of questions, but those are the ones that came up for me.
Oh yeah, that's great questions. I mean, the scope of our kind of Pando project, right, in terms of funding our Pando project, is really creating an awareness campaign. And it's really more on that end to give us the ability to engage with the Garment Worker Center and their members some more by having material translated and letting them really imagine what this district could really be. Currently, I know garment workers, if you were to ask them, what would you like here? They'll basically tell you, we'd like a working toilet, or we'd like there to not be like rats in the emergency exit stairs that we need to like hang out in. The spaces are damp. It's really about bringing the buildings up to a dignified like working environment. So first of all, it's really, that's what I think the Pando project is about sparking the imagination of these garment workers, as well as engaging with the planning department, which has already started. And it's a project that we're also working on in terms of setting up materials to speak with the planning department. They created this whole plan over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And it was only in the last 6 months that the Garment Workers Center caught wind of the plan, that they were going to be kind of gentrified out of with the next 25 years, right? The zoning kind of works like that in 20, 25 year kind of time periods. And when the planning department was willing to meet with the Garment Workers Center and did meet with them. And that's why that one story of manufacturing was added into their plan just in the last few months. We want there to be more time. We think that with the transition of the government, the city government now, we think that there's an opportunity to have more meetings with them and hopefully further revise the zoning plan. So that's one thing. Sorry, my answer is kind of long, but in terms of who funds these actual improvements on the building, one thing that we've imagined is having garment workers move more towards a co-op business model, as opposed to currently where you have the big brands and then the contractors who are just trying to make the most amount of money. And basically, I think a lot of us are aware of the unjust kind of wages and practices that garment workers have to kind of contend with, getting paid only by piece. And if the garment workers could maybe form their own kind of co-op business model and kind of cut the middleman out, that may be a way where there can be more investment directly, from the people that are going to be using the spaces.
So my suggestion in thinking about your campaign is to do that engagement of the different stakeholders that you feel like the city maybe didn't do, right? So you have that type of material and evidence that you can bring to the campaign.
Great. And Steve, in the interest of time, if you just have a comment for the team, that would be great on this one.
Sure. Yeah. No, this is really, I think, interesting. And, I saw this project now thinking about what happened in the city of LA about 10, 15 years ago when the arts district was, wasn't the arts district. It was a failing manufacturing zone, and they reimagined it as a green manufacturing zone, which is right next to the fashion district. And they were supposed to build all these great green buildings. The only thing that got built was the Lacrosse Innovation Campus, where Lacey is now currently have. And gentrification ran rampant. And you have this weird zone where you have, party goers mixing in with semis, going through that. So I think, David, this was really, and your students are tapping on a really interesting idea of keeping manufacturing zones distinct and thinking really cohesively how these different zones interact with sort of the other aspects that we're seeing in urban renewal. Great work to everyone.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks, team. Great stuff. I'm excited now to move actually to a new sustainability category, which is going to be communications. And representing the category is College of the Canyons. Their project is called Training the Next Generation. They've produced a podcast series devoted to sharing the wisdom and experience of environmental leaders with a new generation, which is wonderful. The team leads are Patty Robinson and Jessica Edmond, and Jessica will be presenting. Jessica, love this approach to leadership training and want to hear some more. Let's throw it on over to you.
Thank you so much. We are Dr. Patty Robinson, my colleague, and we are so grateful to be here today and have this opportunity to share our vision of how we can make positive change within our community and also for the County of Los Angeles, and perhaps even be a model for other cities. So our project focuses on the spirit of association by creating a sustainable community. And
Jessica, can you
Okay,
see
so
it?
our college, we are College of the Canyons, and we're located in Santa Clarita, California. Of course, we're all California. For those of you who are not familiar with Santa Clarita, we're also known as the place of Magic Mountain. So that puts us on the map. Anyway, so we're a beautiful city about 30 miles northwest of downtown LA. And we actually are the third largest city in LA County as far as numbers go. So also like to mention, oh, we got to go back to, there we go. So we just want to put some context to our community. So this College of the Canyons was established in 1969 in Santa Clarita, and we have some before and after pictures, the black and white. You can see is a lot of barren land, and you can see how much our community has grown in the past 50 years in the colored photos with all the housing, and the college actually Valencia, that we have two campuses. We have one in Valencia and also one in Canyon Country. And so you can see right above the map is our Valencia location. So next slide, please. Being a growing community, we'll transition to Patty. Thank you, Patty.
I'm so sorry. I think there's a bit of a delay on our end with this slide, so I apologize. Are you able to see the Pando impact goal right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, I apologize. So as what we're trying to do with our impact goal, and just to be very clear here, the work that we're doing is very, very different from the other types of projects that have been part of the Pando Days presentation. They've all been fantastic, but you can probably see that there's been a greater emphasis on environmental sustainability, where we're looking at this more from creating a place for community sustainability. And with regard to our impact goal, you can see that our emphasis is to create a new generation of leaders through the active intergenerational association in nonprofits by creating opportunities for students to work across generations to address local problems and to advance individual belonging, group well-being, and community sustainability. This is aligning with our goal as a college to really look at the topic of the Carnegie classification with regard to civic and community engagement. We are emphasizing engagement, collaboration, the community of how we join the campus and the community together as a way to exchange knowledge and resources, and to also try and create greater partnerships and reciprocity with those in our community. This also fits very nicely with our vision as a campus and our community to go back to the idea of looking at wicked problems and specifically re-examining or revisiting the scholarship of engagement. This is something that we feel very strongly with on our campus, that particularly through project-based learning, that we are really trying to get our students to start to think in terms of those most pressing civic, social, and economic and moral problems that they can start to look at, and again, through this idea of community building.
So the PLACE project started about 3 years ago through a special grant project through an organization called Bringing Theory to Practice. Our project grew into a permanent internship on our campus. And this is just a picture of our original team and our slogan, our home, our community, our place. PLACE stands for Partnerships for Listening and Action by Communities and Educators. And that is definitely what we're all about. So in the very beginning, we were focusing on the wicked problem of housing insecurity, also addressing belonging and well-being within a community. We addressed these issues initially through dialogues between students and classes and faculty, and also engaging our older adult community. Those dialogues were also the beginning of our original podcast series 3 years ago. So we've been working on this for a long time. We discovered through this work and these conversations that through intergenerational discussions reveals a serious gap between the generations and their feelings about the cause of the housing problem and who is benefiting from it and who is suffering from it. We noticed that there was little understanding of each other's needs between the older adults and our younger college age younger adults. And also there were a lot of stereotypes that came out between ageist stereotypes between the younger and the older. And we saw that there was a tremendous lack of trust between the age groups.
And this actually brings us to the concept of trust, which plays a very major role in the work that we're doing. And I've just put some graphs up here, but again, the only thing that I really want you to focus on is how, when we're looking at how citizens are looking at how they in fact trust each other, is that very top graph that is so important, showing that 70% of those people who are part of this study, this Pew study, showed that they actually have low trust. And they don't think that they can actually work together to solve community problems or the country's problems. And this is actually a huge, huge problem that we're seeing. And so what this allows us to do then is to go back, and this really becomes the premise of what we're looking at. We're going back to the old work, if you will, of the idea of social capital and how we build social capital, particularly through the theses that came out of Putman's work and Bella's work and Nesbitt's work, and the idea of bringing social networks together and bonding people together and bridging between diverse populations with that idea of reciprocity. And so what this does, without that trust that we're seeing more and more of in our country today and in our communities, we have to ask, is civic and community engagement increasing? Is democracy at risk? And so this then brings us to this idea of the spirit of association that fits very much back with de Tocqueville's emphasis on associations and how you can bring people from all different walks of life together, and they actually create that change by finding those commonalities, or what he would refer to as the habits of heart. Those particular kinds of dispositions that bring a thread of commonality where we're all working towards the same goal. And again, this fits very nicely with Parker Palmer's work as well, and trying to understand that we are all in this together.
Okay, one way we are doing this is through our local nonprofit organizations, the Zonta International and Rotary International. Both of these organizations have been around for over 100 years and have been very active in the community of Santa Clarita. So we're partnering with them and their leadership, and also with this big attempt to bridge our campus community with the greater community of Santa Clarita. And next slide will show you how we're doing that directly with our students. So we have recently, and thanks to some of our student members here today, Colin is here today, and our place team with Ebony and Haley and Lauren and many others who have put forth great effort into helping us establish these college groups on campus. So the Zonta International, they have a college age group called the Golden Z Club. And Rotary, their college age club is called Rotaract. So both clubs were just chartered actually just about a week ago on our campus. And this meets our goals of developing a new generation of leaders and connecting them with the experienced leaders of the community organizations of these groups. And for them to begin working on solving our local problems and advancing the feeling of belonging and well-being within our community. Next slide. Okay, so in addition to that, we have created a podcast series, and I mentioned that earlier. Our original concept came about 3 years ago. We restarted the podcast during the summer, and this is an image of our first recording was with our last year's Associated Student Government President, Abby Royster, and this year's Associated Student Government, Colin Schneer, and he's with us today. So they talked about leadership and their feelings about our community and lots of good stuff. And there's Patty and I too as well. We have an amazing recording studio at College of the Canyons, and we're so grateful to the faculty member, John Amador, and his interns for making this all possible. You can see with all these pictures, all our community leaders through Rotary and Zonta who came and were recently interviewed. And thanks to one of our team members named Haley, she created a new list of questions for us to engage in these dialogues. And also we have a long-time a community member. We're skipping around here. We had Harold, who's been living in Santa Clarita for over 70 years. So we also got his perspective of this community and service. We want to show you a clip of some of our podcast recordings. These are recent. And you can raise your volume if you can't hear the audio very well.
When I was here, you knew everybody in the valley. You knew them. You knew what their dad did. You knew what their mother did. You knew what their brothers did.
This is Harold.
They're part of a family. Way to get involved in your community is to participate in an organization. When you do that, then you become part of a family. Being afraid is just natural, but overcoming your fear to a goal is something else.
Rotaract is changing communities like ours around the world. The idea is to bring people together of all ages, 18 and over, to exchange ideas with leaders in the community, develop leadership and professional skills, and have fun through the service.
For any young person that will eventually get to be in their 60s like I am, you can look back and say, my life has been filled with purpose, or my life has been pretty much wasted. I wouldn't want anybody that I know to get to the end and say, was that all there was? When I joined, I was a college-age kid. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to go into business. I knew I wanted to go into banking. I did all of that successfully, but it would have been meaningless without a moral compass that Rotaract and then later Rotary provided for me. We believe that it's not only about service, but it's about being ethically correct in the things you say and you do. We want people that are busy. We want people that have a stake in how their community is going to work. What you get out of Rotary is what you put into it.
Our mission is to build a better world for women and girls. We empower women through our service and advocacy projects. Zonta envisions a world in which women's rights are recognized as human rights and every woman is able to achieve her full potential.
We're not a huge organization, but we have a huge impact. The financial reach that we have to really combat some of the ills that are facing women and girls today, it's amazing. When I was looking for ways in which you could become a part of something bigger than you, Zonta provided that opportunity, and it provided it not just on a local level, but for me, the work that we do on an international level has been one of the draws that has kept me connected to Zonta in terms of improving the lives of women and girls.
When I was in college and we were dealing with racism, war, women's rights, and we were starting to deal with gay rights, these are still the issues that are facing us today. And it really breaks my heart to see that there's still so much work to be done, but it does my heart good to see the passion that the Gen Z kids have for the same set of issues.
They are really, to me, the S generation, and we are creating our future together.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you. And I want to go, let me get out of this.
We know we're running a little overtime.
Yes, I just want to,
yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back just two more slides, and we're just very, very quickly, and I apologize for technical issues on our end, on my end, actually. But we wanted to close, and I'll just go ahead and let me see here. I apologize. Can you tell we're extremely nervous? And this has just been something that we've been planning for, and unfortunately, just a little nervous on our end here. Okay.
You're doing great.
All right. I apologize again. So with this, just wanted to wrap it up here. Habits of the heart. Again, taking this idea of the personal and the collective, and what are we trying to do? Through this work, we are really trying to create the personal heart, how we can get our students to have this kind of emphasis where they're looking at the respect and the dialogue and the shared emphasis and empathy and on all those kinds of things that can be developed through working with older adults, and particularly in our nonprofits. At the same time, we're hoping that we're creating the collective heart, that we're creating that mutual support and social bonds and networks and all those kinds of things that are so desperately needed in communities today, not only to keep people together, but also to look at those kinds of social problems as a team. And then finally, our next steps, you can just see here, These are the things that we are in need of and that we will continue to work on. But everything from recruiting to having our podcast series continue and funding, we also are embedding this into parts of our curriculum through project-based learning, and also creating a nonprofit's video repository that we hope will help both students and faculty, more professional development opportunities. And then most importantly, we are integrating this into our COC strategic plan as part of civic and community engagement. And so with that, we just want to say thank you very, very much to the Pando team for everything that you provided us.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much, folks. That was beautiful. Love the presentation. Clearly, I have a new podcast that I need to sign up for. Awesome. So Steve, Chris, and Cassie, we're a little over time, but I'd still love to at least get a comment from each of you before we move into the next project. Maybe Cassie starts.
Sure thing. Thank you so much. That's really exciting and inspiring. And the problem you've identified, the challenge you've identified, is really imperative to our success in doing any of these things. And so that's really great and nice to see. I guess a couple of comments that came to mind were with regard to a podcast. And not speaking from my own personal experience, but maybe of my parents' generation, have you done an evaluation to see how the podcasts reach older generation compared to the younger generations who've been using it forever? Do you think you have a extensive reach with a tool like that?
Part of this is part of our larger problem, to be quite honest, because while we are creating these podcasts, and we've actually started in the summer, we've now continued partially through fall semester, we still have to have funding to actually create the platform. So we are in the process of trying to do that right now, but that's one of the sort of ironies of all of this. We have all of the equipment, we have the students, we have the faculty in media arts, but we do not have the actual funding to create or sustain that platform, but we're working on it. So as far as your question is, I don't know how to answer it yet because we haven't been officially able to launch it.
I see.
Unofficially, just my own personal relationship with older adults, I do have observed podcasts to be very popular among at least my circle of friends and family. I don't know about you guys if you enjoy listening to them as well, but yes. But I think, go ahead.
I was going to say my only other comment, and I give this, I say this to any organization that I've been working with, and we do this ourselves, but I did see in your funding model that you had non-paid interns, and I just encourage you to look for ways to pay interns to make sure that the opportunities for those students are equitable to all students.
Absolutely.
And we have done as much as we can. Believe me, we are right there with you. And so we're always trying to turn over every couch cushion where there's money that we can put towards helping students.
Great, thank you.
Great. Chris and Steve, do you have a quick comment to throw out there?
Love the project. It is a podcast, but it's also an oral history project,
yes.
Which is just wonderful to be able to capture and archive. I know we only got to see a very tiny sliver. I would love to hear more insights on environmental sustainability and community resilience. That would be really wonderful to see. But overall, really love the project, love the civic engagement aspect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Steve, how about you?
Sure. I mean, I think this is a great project. As someone who's aging and seeing the city of Los Angeles that I grew up quickly change around me, and just seeing how quickly communities, generations, and things were moving. I think, branding these type of things with these connections with the younger generation, older, really gives a more sense of place, and, to these different areas. I think it should be definitely commended on creating that type of community and going deeper into that. And I just want to echo what Chris said, particularly, bringing in that resiliency, community, and environmental aspects, because I'm sure, your part of the neck of the woods is quickly losing that agricultural bent, and and seeing it change into a more suburban family is probably something that will be really interesting to capture.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Wonderful project. We've got just one more, and can't think of a better way to end than this category of spirit as well, which we have Pepperdine University representing this third category for today. The project is titled Climate Migration and Faith. With the enormous challenges of climate change come the related ones of caring for climate migrants who are displaced by these extreme weather, rising waters, drought, fire, and the like. Chris Duran is here. He's the team lead. And this project, as I understand it, is the very first climate migration communication and action plan that's actually designed for Protestant church leaders and their communities so that they can be in better position, to help when the time comes. And that sounds like the time is now, Chris. So I would love to hear more.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just start by describing a little bit of the problem. Anthropogenic climate change is causing migration and displacement through both sudden and gradual onset climate-related events. A sudden onset event might be something like a cyclone hitting South Asia or a massive flooding event in Southeast Asia, while a gradual onset event might be something like massive desertification throughout the middle of the African continent or sea level rise on the east coast of North America. While extremely difficult to predict, conservative estimates put climate migration, counting both internal and external displacement, at least 250 plus million people by the end of the century. While other likely more accurate predictions more recently have put that number at somewhere between 2 and 3 billion people around the planet, especially as we continue to move towards a 3 degrees Celsius rise in global temperature by the end of this century. It is discouraging enough that most governmental agencies are not listening to the world's scientists when it comes to modeling the consequences of climate change, like migration. But to me, as a Christian theologian, it is even more discouraging that in survey after survey, too many American Protestants say anthropogenic climate change is not real and or believe that its consequences are not severe enough to modify our highly consumptive behavior. That said, this project had the bold idea of getting my students to create a series of lesson plans for a local Protestant church. As I started this project, I realized that no one else is attempting to do this sort of work, at least anything that I could find, meaning that there was no real analog for my students to draw upon. So besides getting a lot of encouragement from the Pando's Day team, including Eugene, for which I am grateful, I want to say that I'm also greatly encouraged by my students who have been very creative in working on something that appears to be significantly novel. So as we set out on this endeavor together, we took very seriously at least the following 3 challenges. Number 1, anthropogenic climate change is not easy to talk about in America, and it is especially not something that is talked about frequently in American Protestant churches. Number 2, climate migration and displacement is definitely not common knowledge to the average American Protestant. So we would have to do some minimal basic education before discussing the potential Christian theological and moral contributions. And third, we would need to employ vocabulary that would simultaneously not make people feel overly guilty and avoid as much political polarization as possible, both of which we deem necessary if we want to make a positive impact on our audience. So with that as our starting point, we partnered with the University Church of Christ, which meets on the Malibu campus of Pepperdine University and happens to be my current church family. My 16 students, coincidentally all female, were split into 4 groups of 4 and each connected with a church leader. Our lead minister in charge of preaching, who's a male, our campus minister who works primarily with 18 to 20-year-olds, who is a female, our youth minister who works with roughly 6th to 12th graders, who's a male, and one of our church council members, who's a female. Each of these groups were then required to meet for 4 one-hour sessions during the course of the semester to interview their church leader and ask for advice on various issues related to educating the congregation about climate migration. The students use course readings, lectures from my own research project into this topic, readings of scriptural stories through the lens of climate migration, along with their own research to create the lesson plans. The students were especially encouraged to address the disproportionate impact that climate migration and displacement has on women. Before discussing some of the topic areas covered, let me share some of the themes that arose frequently in the building of these lesson plans after my students met with church leaders. From the group who worked with our youth minister, my students learned that members of that group, middle schoolers and high schoolers primarily, crave deep conversations about important issues. They do not want to be dismissed from dealing with critical topics merely because of their age. Moreover, many of them can already attest to the consequences of climate change in their local communities, even if they have probably never heard of the idea of climate migration. My students thus were encouraged to create material that would make them feel involved in the topic, but in an age-appropriate way. In other words, help them see what they can do, even if it might seem minimal to the scope of the global problem. They were also encouraged not to engage in proof texting, but instead help them, the middle schoolers and high schoolers, read the biblical stories through the lens of climate migration. From the group who worked with the campus minister, my students were encouraged to start from a broader perspective of creation care rather than jumping straight into talking about climate change and its consequences. They were asked to think about how churches can be leaders in changing the negative stereotypes that many Americans have about migrants. And they were significantly encouraged to think about how Jesus's depiction as a migrant in the Gospel of Matthew in particular might be relevant now in the 21st century. From the two groups who worked with our church council member and our lead minister, my students were urged to consider how to communicate material that didn't make people feel guilty, but rather motivated them into appropriate action. They discussed how to address a church that can sometimes shy away from seemingly difficult topics because of the fears of alienating people and stepping into topics that can appear sometimes to be more political than religious. They were encouraged to depoliticize talk about migrants by focusing on using language that might make congregants think about being the hands and feet of Jesus and thus connect them to other good work that the church has been doing and does presently. Some of the theological themes that arose in the projects have come from biblical stories like Esther, Ruth, and her mother-in-law Naomi, the widow of Zarephath, the Israelite exodus out of Egypt, and the betrayal of Jesus as a migrant in the Gospel of Matthew. Those themes included virtues like empathy, sacrifice, dignity of and respect for the stranger, and agape love. So, for example, how much are we willing to sacrifice for the other? The story of Ruth indicates a level of sacrifice that was not obligatory in her role as a mother-in-law, or as a daughter-in-law rather, and should make a contemporary reader uncomfortable as it asks if this level of sacrifice is demanded of us all. Or instead of thinking of Jesus as a heroic white-skinned figure, as far too many American Protestants do implicitly, a closer reading of Matthew and the historical context reveals that Jesus was an olive-skinned, complected migrant who illegally fled to another country. If American Protestants somehow come to empathize with Jesus's position, how do we not empathize with people of color who are displaced around the planet disproportionately at no fault of their own either? So ideally, what's next for this project, other than my students finishing their final drafts and turning them in? Our campus minister has already committed to using the 4 lesson plans created by the 4 students working with her for a class of college students in the next academic fall. Our youth minister has indicated that he would like to do the same on a different time scale. And our lead minister and I are currently thinking through how to best use the material generated for adults in both sermon series and relevant teaching modules, perhaps podcasts in our adult education series. Furthermore, as I've discussed with the Pando's Days team in the past, I'd be interested in locating more funding to transform these lesson plans into something more formal that could be used in other Protestant settings as well. And that's all I've got.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Really wonderful to hear about this project and all of the work. Of course, this is so timely with thinking about climate change and all of the challenges that that's bringing for us as well. So really appreciate it. And I'm sure that our panelists have some questions to throw your way. So let's see, who did I pick on most recently? Maybe we start with Steve. I don't think we've started with Steve for a bit.
Thank you. So no, I think this is really interesting. When it comes to climate, we do a lot of behavioral work on, whether it's just turning off a light switch, turning down your water. And I think it's this idea of empathy that is really, really important. You know, putting yourself in that situation, understanding how climate change is really impacting so many of our lives, and you know, personalizing that message. So I think, you know, the question is I think this is a really successful model that you're doing, looking at particularly migrants. Are you looking at perhaps other types of climate emergencies and climate resiliency practices?
Yeah, at this point, we're focusing on either internally or externally displaced folks because of the magnitude of that. With the, you know, I said the conservative number by the World Bank and others is about 250 million, but there's a lot of world government agencies, including the U.S. military and others, who think that number is probably going to be closer to 2 to 3 billion people around the planet. So we focused on less of, well, we did do a couple of modules in class about how, if you were to like meet with a local governmental official like the Malibu City Council, or we did a module with, like, if you met with the state governor, what would you say in order to prepare for those kinds of folks to come to our borders, and particularly looking at the disproportionate amount that is likely to be women and children, and what would it mean to set up shelters or semi-permanent dwellings for people with those particular needs that are often not predicted or modeled in emergency kinds of settings. So looking again at the disproportionate impact, not just on women that climate change has, but then when they flee to another country or within their own home country, trying to understand what would it look like to plan for that more effectively, rather than to be incredibly reactive, which most world governments unfortunately are when it comes to these sorts of events.
Great, thank you so much.
Chris, let's turn it to you, and then we'll end with Cassie.
Yeah, thank you. This was really, really interesting to learn about. I think similarly, I am thinking about sort of applicability across different scales of impact, right? So definitely climate migration, international climate migration, huge there's a lot to contemplate, and we're just beginning to sort of scratch the surface as a international society. But then there's also just considering domestic impacts of climate change. And so we do have domestic migration. We also have just the reality that a lot of people will choose to stay in place. You know, we can look to New Orleans after Katrina, and really just sort of the attachment to place and wanting to be there, even despite climate change challenges, and what might we be able to start thinking about in our relations with other people on an individual level, at, you know, larger societal levels, where we can also look out for our vulnerable neighbors as well, and how might that be addressed?
Yeah, we talked a little bit. I mean, there's no sort of one size fits all solution to this, but we did look at different models of what's often called strategic managed retreat, and why some communities are interested in that and other communities are absolutely not interested in that. There's a well-documented case in Imperial Beach down in San Diego of a town that was running out of money to build seawalls and to clear plumbing based on sea level rise. And just the introduction of the term strategic retreat caused city council members to take on very angry citizens, because the idea was we were giving up. So, you know, there's not just a rhetorical challenge, but a sense of, you know, people's connection to place can change the way that we think about this. So we did have a small module on the fact that we often think about this internationally, but that Americans are starting to move due to climate related issues, but oftentimes it is more wealthy Americans who have the choice to move. So we see this now, people leaving, wealthy folks leaving California for a second or third home somewhere else that has water, rather than staying in a drought-stricken place, or like, for example, where I'm at, where it burns all the time. And so I think there's some dots that we were trying to connect, that it's easy to think about this as an international issue only, but yet at the same time, it is incredibly domestic, but we don't like to see it as that. We don't like to see Florida being constantly overrun by hurricanes, or New Orleans. Actually, the first group of quote unquote climate refugees is in the state of New Orleans. The Obama administration gave $45+ million to a group to move only 30 miles. And that was just one group of indigenous folks who happened to be pushed out of Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears and then went to New Orleans and then, so we have these kinds of situations happening here in the States, and we're just not recognizing them for what they are.
Great, thank you. Chris and Steve, you already asked such thoughtful questions. I was definitely thinking along those same lines because this is very local and very relevant, obviously, to what's happening here. So what other types of, and you touched on some of this, I'm just curious about some other types of models or organizations that you have either evaluated or have partnered with on this, who deal with migration, whether it's climate related or not.
So we're looking into that still. There's a great group called Climate Refugees. Actually, it's an international organization that is one of the few that actually tries to take data on this, because one of the problems is not just the collection of data of migrants just in general, but then the data disaggregation for women and children that is necessary in order to have more gender responsive emergency shelters and things like that. In the case of this particular church group, we looked at its long-time, multi-decade relationship with the Malibu Labor Exchange, which is a group here run by a former colleague of Cesar Chavez to help find jobs for day laborers here in the Malibu area. And so the idea that some of my students came up with, and we'll attempt to try some of this next semester, is to think about how do you talk to people who have already migrated and sort of try to build relationships with them to understand why they did. Was it, as our economist colleagues would tell you, it's always all about the money? Or is it the fact that drought and inclement weather and weather events cause people to not be able to grow food any longer, and so they migrate as a way to attempt to send money back to their families? So we're trying to look locally and try to understand how different migrant-related groups here, or just our farm workers in general, who tend to be heavily from Central America or the Dry Corridor or other parts of Mexico, to understand some of their stories, which is going to take a while, because oftentimes those groups have very high sense of reticence to talk to not just white folk like me, but to talk to folks who they might perceive would give them over to the governmental organizations if they were to be really open with their stories. So it's a tough challenge, but one that we look forward to kind of continuing to work with.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chris, so much for such a great project. And thanks everybody for your presentations. The bad news is the day is over, but the good news is that we've got one more great day to follow. That's going to be on Friday. So tomorrow we rest. Friday, we party on with 5 more incredible projects. Again, all focused on helping to build a sustainable future in the Southland. So it'll be the same time, the same place. I do hope you all can make it and check those out as well. I do want to do some thank yous and some final wrap-up material here. Of course, have to thank our expert panel of Steve, Cassie, and Chris. Thank you, all 3 of you, for your time today. It's been really wonderful to get your insights and to help further elevate and explore these projects. Also to all of the presenting colleges and universities, you dedicated so much time and effort to this, full courses, studios, or labs over this term to create these submissions. And I really appreciate all of that hard work. And I know, these are the types of things that will make a better community for us all as well. So thanks to the professors and team leads, to the students who will inherit the future that we're now creating. And remember that all Pando Days project presentations and deliverables, they are going to be posted to the website, where you can read in detail what the projects are, a bit about the next steps that they're taking, and more. And you'll see that that's in the chat now to be able to check out as it continues to evolve and update. Pando Days wouldn't be possible without so many people on the team. So we've got a few special shout outs. We've got Gary Giro as Pando Days key advisor, Doug Chang as series producer, Lynn Goldfarb as creative producer, Betsy Hunter, Alexi Karakotis, yes, Mark O'Brien, Michael Braley, John Bielenberg, Brant Williams, and of course, Eugene Shirley. Be sure to go to the website, pandopopulous.com, to see all of the school project descriptions and explore their presentation materials. Pando Days was conceived with the help of the LA's Chief Sustainability Officer Task Force and made possible in part by the generous support of LACY, the LA Clean Tech Incubator, Clean Power Alliance, and Calpine Energy Solutions, the Happold Foundation, LADWP, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, Plant Moran, Alexandria Technology, and LA Metro, as well as generous contributions from many of you. So again, hope you all can join us on Friday. We're going to be hearing from Cal State Long Beach with 2 separate projects, Cal State University Northridge, Cal Arts, and a collaborative project from Harvey Mudd College, Pomona College, and Cal Poly Pomona, which is really great to see. So yeah, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Take care, everybody.